Hello everyone, this is Gary DeTonicourt from MoreThanASnapshot.com, and welcome to this week's critiques. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, let's try to keep the images to probably 3 per person. So in some cases, I went through and picked out the ones that I liked, so you may not see every image that you put up. And this week we happen to have a lot of them, so I had to be a little more selective. Also, be sure and check out MoreThanASnapshot.com. I started a contest that you can vote on. This week was about birds. See if you like any of the bird photos that have been entered, pick a winner, and that person will get a free coupon to one of my online classes. Alright, so let's get going with this critique video. Here we have a nice image of a bridge and a couple walking over the bridge. And I think you had the right idea with this. It's a nice scene, cool looking bridge, and the people in the scene really, help to add interest. I like all the metal work here and the leading line that we have here. Pretty much the exposure looks like it's good, and the image looks sharp, so all that's good. I think, to me, what the problem is there's something called the decisive moment, and that is capturing the image right at the exact moment of peak action or interest. And I think what went wrong with this image is that you went past the decisive moment. The couple is on the other side of the bridge, and it's hard to see. You can tell they're sort of holding hands, but that's kind of cut off. And I think it's just too late. If you had caught the couple up on the top of the bridge, that would have been the decisive moment. But good try. Here we have a cute little bird, and let's take a look. He looks very sharp. I see that there are some blown highlights, and that can be very tough when you have very bright areas and the bird is in shade. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. The histogram looks pretty good, but there are some highlight spots that are overexposed. Also, the composition, the bird seems like it's kind of crammed up in this corner, kind of too tight to this corner, to the point where you cut off the bird's tail. So, and then we have all of this space out here, which is not really doing much or adding to our photo. So if it's not adding to your photo, remove it from your photo. I just had an experience last night with some judges in my camera club who were judging some of my images, and cropping was one of the reasons why an image was removed. So be careful with how you crop. Don't put it too close to the edge, and don't allow too much useless space. This is a nice scene. Oh, here's the whole image. Alright, this is even better. Again, the exposure on this one looks good. I like the waterfall. I like this leading line leading to the waterfall. The stone wall is very interesting. To me, I think this picture feels fragmented because of this tree right here. This tree feels like it's blocking me. If your eye comes into the image from left to right, this tree is a blocker. Plus, there's really not much interest in the photo over here. The real photo is right over here. So, cropping this maybe to vertical. We don't need all of this foreground. We do want to keep maybe some of that stone. It would be nice if that tree branch wasn't there, but something like this. And maybe even not so much sky either. Let's see if we come down a bit. Maybe into a square. Anyway, this is on the right track. You would have needed to move. It's not really something we're really going to be able to fix with the cropping. You would have needed to move your camera to the right spot to just focus on the waterfall, maybe some grasses and stream leading to the waterfall, maybe a little bit of rock wall, but there was a lot of stuff in there we didn't need. Also, the foreground, it's hard to tell. I can't zoom in, but it doesn't feel real sharp, and neither does the wall feel real sharp. I don't know if that's because you moved when you were taking the exposure, if this was not on a tripod, that could be the reason, or if it just wasn't focused very well. Here we have another shot of this little bird, and again, he's nice and sharp, but the same problems as the one before. The highlights are, the rim light is quite overexposed around the outside of the body, and we have a lot of empty space with the bird crowded down in one corner. I know you might be going for the rule of thirds here, but with this shot I think you're pushing the rule of thirds too close to the edge. Just my opinion. Alright, here we have a shot of water fire that we have here in Providence, Rhode Island. And we can see the workers loading up the basket of wood. It's a nice shot. The exposure looks good. And it looks sharp. And we can see the crowd in the background and the nice lights. So it's pretty good. I like this one. Alright, this is a cool image. It looks like, I'm guessing this is why you took this picture, but it looks like this is some sort of a face. Almost looks like a horse or a bird or something like that. That's what I'm seeing in the photo. This kind of looks like an eye, this kind of looks like maybe a beak, and then the feathers on top. It looks really cool. I think, though, it didn't need to be a vertical, because making it a vertical puts a lot of empty space on the top and the bottom. So if it had been cropped to a horizontal, I think it would be more effective, like that. There's a small amount of overexposure. If you had shot a raw file, you could use the highlight slider and bring that in. I can bring it in somewhat here, but it's not really going to protect that edge. Also, there's some brightness here, so I would use my post-crop vignetting tool and darken the edges just a bit. And here we can see the before and after. By darkening the bright spot back here and taking off the highlights, I think it does improve the image a bit. But good job of seeing, because it's an unusual subject, but yet it's a pretty cool subject. Here we have another water fire shot, and again, I like this one. The exposure and the sharpness look good. We can even see this nice archway here. We can read this bridge's name and everything. My one problem with this one is that the fire is blocking the people on the boat. It's blocking part of the boat. So I think it's more of a timing issue. Maybe if you had captured the boat before it reached the fire. This is what we would call a merger of these two objects in the photo. They're blocking each other. It's competing with each other. Another water fire shot showing the whole central area. And the sky looks good, the buildings in the background look good, all the exposure and the fire and everything looks good. It does look sharp. It must have been a windy night, because all the fires look like they're really blowing. And so I would say most of this one is very good. I know you wanted to include the whole ring here. That's probably why you ended up with this light post in the shot. Maybe if you had found a different angle or a closer angle, you could have avoided this lamppost. That's, to me, the one problem with this shot. But otherwise, pretty good. I do like, of the bunch of the waterfall shots, I do like this one. I think the exposure and the sharpness in this one are better. And I like the soft, milky water coming over the waterfall. I still have a problem with this tree blocking Composition wise, I think that tree is a bit of a problem. Maybe if you had stood over here somewhere and again just focused more on this part of the scene. I don't think me cropping it is really going to help it much, but I'll give it a shot. Looking at more like something like that, even though that doesn't look good. To me, I find that tree to be a problem. Alright, this shot is really nice. I really like the interesting clouds, nice detail, and the clouds are sort of like leading lines leading to these very interesting trees back here, which are sort of in silhouette. All of that is great. The snow on the ground, I'm guessing that looks like, yeah, it must be snow. It seems like that could be a bit brighter, and it's a little tough to tell what this looks like. It's a stone wall, and let's give this a shot. If we made it a bit brighter, I'm going to use the graduated filter, and I'm going to double click effect to reset everything, and I'm going to bump up the exposure. I don't know, I'll start with a one stop just for the heck of it. And I'm going to draw this up, and you can see here that this brightened up the snow in the foreground. And now I can play around with it and see, well, just how bright do I want to go? Do I want it darker? Do I want it brighter? And I think I don't want to go too bright. I can check my histogram here and see where I am. I don't want to blow out the sky either. I might have to go into the sky separately and take that part down a little. And I don't want to make that stone wall too bright. So somewhere around a stop, I think, looks like it's pretty good. So I'm going to put that tool away, and I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool. This time I'm going to lower the exposure a bit, and I'm going to paint this part of the sky, because it made that part of the sky too bright. I don't want to overexpose the sky. I might look over here too. This part of the sky is kind of bright. Take that down just a little bit. Very good. So I'll put that tool away and just take a look at the before and after. And I think that the foreground looks much better. And we could even do a little dodging and burning. You can see that there's like a highlight region here and there is a shadow region here. And so why not highlight that? So you have a brush tool in Lightroom, and if you look at the brushes, there is a dodge and a burn tool, or you could just use the exposure adjustments and do it yourself. But I'll go to the dodge tool first, and I'm just going to look for the little highlights. There's a highlight, and I'm going to paint through there. Maybe there's a little bits of highlight over here, maybe a little highlight back there. I could even do this in certain parts of the clouds. Just add small amounts of highlights to make that pop. I don't want to overexpose it, I just want to have a little bit of pop. Then I'm going to hit a new brush and pick burn this time, or darken. And I'm going to find the shadows. And I'm going to paint in some of the shadows and add contrast and texture. I might even add a little bit of burning into some of these darker clouds. And it's a subtle effect, but it is one that can be important. Alright, I'll put the brush away, and then I'll zoom in. I want to see this part. It looks like there's a little bit of noise in the clouds. So what I would do is take the brush tool and again make it a new tool, a new brush, and pick this time noise. This time I can brush in the noise removal just where I want the noise removal. which is mostly in the sky. So I can use a big soft brush. And I would take my time and do this a bit better, but I'm doing it quick here. Just removing some noise from the sky. I don't know if we'll be able to see a difference. Let's see if we can go to the before and after. Up in this corner especially, you can see that there was noise here and now there is not, or at least much less. So that was a little bit of noise removal and a little bit of dodging and burning that we've done here. And I think this image is nice. I think that this image could also be a good candidate for black and white, even though it looks great just like this. Let's give that a shot. In Lightroom, if you right click on an image and click create virtual copy, you can do things to the image without affecting your first copy. So you can try out different versions. So here I have some black and white filters, and this one happens to say black and white for snow. So let's see how that looks. It's a very monochromatic image to begin with, so that's why it works as a black and white. And we can see here, this is the before. And I don't know whether I like it better black and white or I think I like it better black and white. It's cool to see the blue in the sky. Definitely do like that. But I think I like it better in black and white. Also, what you might want to do is add some clarity. If I took another brush, make it a new brush, reset the brush, and add some clarity, especially to the clouds, that can add some texture to them. And maybe we want to add it to this stone wall also. So I'll just add it quickly to there. Alright, so let's take a look at the before and after now. I like them both, but I think I might be leaning towards the black and white one. What do you think? But it's a great image. Here we have a bee on a flower. And it's a little tough to tell, but it does not seem to be perfectly sharp. The exposure looks pretty good. I think maybe it could be cropped a little tighter. We didn't need to see in that hole. Oops, I cropped it too tight. Don't want to touch the bee's leg. You know, something like that. Alright, here we had someone who took a photo that was, the purpose of it was the retouching in what image editing they did. So let me find the other image. I believe this one is the before image. And somehow the after image got separated. Hopefully it got downloaded. Oh yes, here it is. Good. And I do think it's an improvement. The cropping was a good idea. The color on the leopard looks better. And let me just go back to the original one for a second to see if you cut off the front paw. No, it was cut off in the original one anyway. So I guess when you took the photo, just be careful you don't cut off parts of the animal. But good job, you're on the right track. Here we have another shot, a different composition of that snow scene. The exposure on this one, on the foreground, is a bit nicer, but the sky is, especially in this part of the picture, overexposed, as you can see here. But the trees look great as far as their silhouette. If you had exposed for this part of the image would have not had that overexposure, but this might have been a good candidate for taking multiple exposures. So you would take an exposure to get the correct exposure on the foreground snow, and then you take a different exposure to get the correct exposure on the bright sky. In this case, we could try to recover some of this again with our gradient tool. I'm going to reset it and go to take the exposure down, and I'm going to draw out a gradient this direction. And it is knocking it down some, but you can see that so much of the detail is lost that even though I'm bringing the exposure down, there's no detail coming back here. Because this is a JPEG image, we're not really helping it. If this was a RAW file, maybe you can bring some of this back if you have the original RAW file. I probably would also use another gradient and brighten up the foreground again. Again, maybe going this way this time because, whoops, too much. Brighten up the foreground, but that's way too much. Just a little bit. Again, this could be a good candidate for black and white as well. Alright, this is a really cool scene. I like the leading line. I like the fountains. Interesting building. Probably a little too much stuff here on the left. It could have maybe avoided some of that. Crop that in a bit. And there is some overexposure in the sky, and we're not going to be able to recover. You can see this big spike here is the overexposed area. Again, an HDR type of image with many exposures would help this image. This is really nice. The flower looks great. I love the viewpoint. I don't mind having this flower here in the background. It sort of adds a diagonal line. It's out of focus quite a bit, so I don't think it's a big merger problem. Maybe there's a little too much black here on the right side. Let's see if we crop some of that off. Well, maybe that's a little too tight. Yeah, I think I would lose a little bit of that black space there. And you're not super overexposed, but there is a tiny bit of overexposure here. So just watch that on your histograms. Take some extra shots. Take it at where you think is the right exposure, and then take a shot 1 or 1/3 of a stop or 2/3 of a stop underexposed, so you don't have this occurring. Again, we have this waterfall. I like this angle, I think, better than your previous angle. You do have the nice soft silky water, but something went wrong here with these these shafts of light coming in. This is overexposed and it's sun flare, I guess. So if maybe your exposure was too long, or you didn't have a lens hood on, or a combination of those problems. And the image does not seem to be very sharp. I don't know if you did these handheld, but I think this really needed a tripod. Here we have a nice sharp shot of this little bird. It's cute. It's got a catch light in the eye. Everything about the bird I like. And the background is nicely out of focus, so you did a good job. I like seeing all the ice crystals on the bench. I don't think we need to see the bottom rail underneath here with all the cobwebs. I think that's taking away from the image. And I don't think we need all of this background. This is the kind of thing that could be a small square image, because this is our subject. Whether you do it as a rectangle or horizontal, vertical, or square, We just need to be in tighter on the bird. And because this is a small file size, we can't see it any bigger, but this is the general idea with the crop. This image is really out of focus, so not much we can do with that. I like this good bit of seeing this interesting fungi. It would be nice to, before you took the picture, if you could remove all of these sticks, because they are blocking the interest of the fungi. On the fungi itself, it looks like it's the right exposure. It's interesting because they're sort of wet looking, so it was a good time to take this photo. There is some glare on it in certain spots, and one thing you might want to try is using a circular polarizing filter when you do this to try and remove this glare. It will help saturate the colors of the mushrooms. But this image needs to be cropped, and the area needed to be cleaned. All these little sticks and stuff are a problem. You know, I could do something like this. I like seeing the mud. That's interesting. The fungi's interesting. All that other stuff was not adding to the picture. If it's not adding to the picture, it's taking away from the picture. Oh, very nice shot of a rainbow. Cool building in front. Double rainbow. You know, with this type of a shot, it's nice to have some foreground interest and have the rainbow. So I think you did a good job with the exposure and the sharpness, and the colors look great. So it's a good job. This is a nice flower shot. I think that it's a little bit underexposed in the midtones at least. So I'll go into the midtone section and pump that up a bit, see how much more vibrant the flower becomes when we look at the before and after. Other than that, it does seem like the flower is nice and sharp. Maybe it could have used some more depth of field, because the front part of the flower is nice and sharp, and then it falls off to the back. I don't know what f-stop you used, but who knows? Maybe even using f22 might not have even gotten the back petals in focus. It's not a terrible problem. You could have tried something advanced like focus stacking to try to get all the layers in, but that's pretty difficult, and you really need special software to do that. And I don't think we needed all this green on the left side, so I would crop. Maybe not so close, maybe something like that. But this is pretty nice. I like the gondola shot. Would have been nice to have the people more engaged in this direction than in that direction. And this is just kind of like a moving animal or moving bird. Since this is moving, it should be backed up more back here, giving it room to come into the frame. Where you have it so close to here, it's almost out of the frame. And then we have the extra space back here where we didn't really need it. So keep that in mind. You want any moving object, you want to give it room to come into the frame. But I do like the exposure. I do like the reflection in the water. It's a cool shot. I think that it just needed to be composed a little bit differently. This shot needs to be a little bit brighter. And the flower back here looks pretty good. It's a nice close composition. It's interesting. All that kind of stuff. You got too much stuff on the left here, so that could have been cropped out. And the biggest problem to the photo is this flower that's blocking our view of this flower. This is our main actor in the image, and it shouldn't be blocked. Here we have a silhouette of a duck, and it's okay, except that I think you cropped off a lot of the duck, and we have a lot of empty space out here. I know in this case you are giving him room to look. We could also try bringing our black point down a little bit to make the silhouette, since we're really not seeing much detail in the duck. Let's go ahead and make the duck a pure silhouette by changing the black point. And then we do have a little bit of distraction in the background. This is a really nice image, great background, interesting person and props, and the sharpness and exposure all look good, except that because it was so much in the shade, we could probably use it to be a little bit brighter. So I'm going to pump it up just a little bit more to try to give it a little more kick, a little more interest. See, now he has some highlights on his face. Might even go in there with the brush, if I can reset the brush, and just add a little bit of exposure to the eyes. Make the eyes pop out a bit more. You don't want to go crazy with the eyes, because obviously you can make it look fake and weird. So you just want a little bit of brightening in the eyes. And I went quite a lot here just because this image is kind of dark. But ordinarily I wouldn't go that high when brightening the eyes either. And here's the before and after. But this one's a good job. Nice subject and a good job. I really like this one. I like the mirror image of the building. I like the diagonal line through the middle of the mirror image, and I think it's very good. I think the top part of the image might be a tad bit bright. As you can see, we can probably take a gradient and lower the exposure a little bit of the top of the image. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Alright, and then to try to balance it off a bit more, I'd probably do the same thing on the bottom. I'd just make the bottom a little bit brighter. And try to make them look a little bit more in balance. You do want the bottom, so it looks natural, you want the bottom to be a little darker than the top, but you want them to be a little closer in balance. So, let's take a look at that. I think that that is better. You can see the nice blue in the water here now. Before it looked very dark, and we can see some nice blue in the sky here. The white parts of the building are not overexposed anymore. The other thing is that the crop might have been a little bit tight. You're cropping off a little bit of the top of the building, and you're cropping it off a little bit here. I suppose we could get away with that. That's not bad. I think the only part of that that bugs me is that it chopped off the tip of the building there. And there's a little piece of stick here. I would clone that out. Try the little spot removal tool here. It would be better to do that in Photoshop, but that's a quick and dirty way of getting rid of it. But I do like this image. Good job. This one, I really like the composition. I like even that you added the white border. Give it that sort of dreamy feel. The highlights here, though, are a little bit overexposed. So let's see if we can take them in a bit. Not so much that they're really losing detail, just so much that you can see that it was too bright. So what would have helped this image when you took it is if you had, if you like to take these kind of flower images in midday, get yourself a small diffuser, and it's like a little ring that's got like a soft white material, and you can hold it up above the flowers and diffuse the sunlight, so you don't get these really harsh light spots on your flowers. Here we have another shot of that bee that includes more stuff. Again, I think it needs to be cropped. All of that is not adding to the image. And maybe the bee is sharp. Like I said, it's a little hard to tell, but because some parts of the flower are not, it doesn't seem like it's very sharp. We saw that one already. That's fine. All right. Here again, I would brighten this up just a little bit to make this flower pop. Again, this flower seems to be the center of interest. Even this stuff here in front is not in focus, so it would have been nice if you had found an angle where you could have excluded this pink flower and these green petals. But this flower looks nice. And you can see the light was soft on this one, so it's not overexposed. We don't have highlights and deep shadows. The light was much softer here. Here we have a nice little city scene from up above. And I really like it. You have the blur effect in here, making it seem like it's a miniature. And I like that effect. It's very cool. This looks like it's very well done. The exposure and the sharpness from front to back all look nice. I really like it. It's very nice. Good job. I had some other comment that just went away, but I do like this image. Oh well, it's not coming to me. Good job though. Alright, here we have more of a close-up of those mushrooms, and I do like this better. And I think it could possibly be a little bit brighter. We're going to have to bring in the highlights a bit though. Well, that's the problem. We're fighting with those highlights. So here again, to help this out when taking the image, again, make sure you shoot a raw file and you can recover some of these highlights. Or this is another case where having that diffusion panel on the left side would soften the light coming onto the mushrooms. Although the light doesn't look like it's real harsh, we just mainly have these highlights here. So that's where using a circular polarizing filter would help remove those shiny highlights, and it would show us much more detail and color in the mushrooms. But I do like this shot. I like the composition where it's sort of an arch. So good job. Try the shot again if you can go back to this spot, but use a circular polarizing filter. I think I like the shot before this, but this is not bad either. Again, I think this one needed cropping on this side. Oop, that may be, it is, the last image of the group. So some very good images this week. Keep up the good work, and post some more of your new photos. And hope you enjoyed this critique session. This has been Gary D. Tonnecourt from morethanasnapshot.com.